Welcome to the planning board meeting of June 5th, 2018. The meetings are recorded. With that, I'll take a motion
Motion
to
on the
accept the
minutes.
meetings. Motion by Pat to accept the meeting minutes, seconded by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstention.
Unanimous at 3 with 2 abstentions, Babe and I. Seeing how we weren't here, although we can vote on them. With that, it brings us to 7:01, the continuation of the public hearing for application of Grayson Builders for approval of Labrador Estates definitive plan, full lot subdivision off of Central Street.
Hello, Dan Mason from Gary and Howland, representing Grayson Builders. I received a letter from the water company today.
May 11? Yep. I think we all have a copy.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
May 11th, yeah, May
sure
11th,
we got
yeah,
it.
we have it. It's in the package, yep.
Basically, the first page is going through
Yeah.
the specifications, increasing the pipe from an 8-inch that's on the plans to a 12-inch. The last comment in bold is this note applies to water service connections only, water extensions and water service and fire protection purposes. Still being authorized by the company. So what that means is we can run the water line to the end of the cul-de-sac.
Mm-hmm.
They will charge it, there will be fire protection there. And then they'll have to go back to the water company to get connection permits. So they're granting us,
How many units are there again? 4?
Or,
4 units?
Are you kidding me? They're telling you that they're not gonna give you, I'm sorry, but you're telling me that they're not gonna give you permission for 4 houses, but there's enough water capacity for fire protection, that's what you're saying?
yes,
I'm sorry, but that's a tough way to run a business. And regrettably, because of the subdivision, you're required to have town water, so it's kind of a foolish,
Wow.
it's kind of a foolish way to write something. Either you have the water or you don't. I'm sorry, it's not your fault. I find that to be a little ridiculous and erroneous in how you're supposed to survive if you can't tell if you can be supplied for 4 houses.
well, I think effectively it leaves it up to the builder. If he wants to put in, he's gonna have to dig a well at the point in time that he's gonna go for an occupancy permit, or he's gonna have to go back to the water company at that time. For us, it's in terms of the safety issue, we have fire protection.
Mm-hmm.
For him, it becomes an issue of, do I build it, do I wait until I get the approval, or do I plan on putting in wells and pricing it accordingly with wells?
essentially what they're saying is this is a temporary thing until their well fields are updated or,
Well, they sell it to the town.
so,
Seriously.
Yeah.
whether it's. a
This is,
month, a year,
this is blasphemy, it really is. This is a horrible way to do things, and again, it's not your fault, I
Well,
find
I
it to
think-
be very distasteful.
Yeah, I think the issue they have, though, to a certain extent, not that I'm stepping in for the water company here, but I think they have a significant amount of things in front of them that they've been asked to provide water. So I think at the end of the day, until they can do that, they're not gonna select which ones they're going to do or not do. So they couldn't, even though this was 4 house lots and it's a small usage, I don't think they're gonna say yes, because
Yeah, but
the next guy's gonna come and say, well, why didn't you give it to me?
Here's the problem, though. I understand that they have other, in theory, 40 Bs in front of them, which the capacity is gonna be much greater. But my problem is you have the applicant right in front of them requesting permits for 4 houses. That's my problem. You know, you have to answer the questions like it's in front of you. I mean, to me, it's foolish. And by the way, I'm sure if the power company wants to buy water at 2.5 times, they'll have no problem selling it to them.
Got that
So-
right.
I'm sorry, I just think it's a
Well, I
horrible
think
way to do
it's a shame that
things.
you have to go back to get the permit, you know, instead of giving it to you right away. I understand what Pat is saying, but that's.
Again, it's not
Well,
your
the-
fault, but
Huh?
Will the water laterals be run to the sidelines to the curb stops?
Yes, they will be, they'll be tapped and extended out to the property lines.
Okay.
And they'll do it along Central Street as well when they're going by to the houses that are on Central Street.
that's all you can ask for. I mean,
Well, this
seriously,
is
that's all
what's
you can
gonna
ask for.
happen now. The people who run along Central Street be able to tap in because they have to. And the guy who spends the money to put the line in is gonna be penalized.
Again, this is the shameful part of what my problem is. This is just a horrible way to do things.
Oh, I agree.
Mike, I noticed you had a letter with a comment on the grading.
Yeah, so the memo references my original report that had several items in there, they have been addressed. And then when I was preparing this memo, it's reference to new information that was submitted in reference to the site distance for the new roadway at the intersection of the existing Central Street. So, the plan showed a fairly steep slope on the sideline of the roadway to create that site distance. So I'm asking for, or I asked for that slope to be riprap.
This would be along Central Street itself,
Yeah.
in front of the owner that's
Yes,
immediately to the
exactly,
west.
right where they're cutting the trees and removing the trees, there's some grading that has to be done in that shoulder. Or slope, I wouldn't really call it a shoulder, but, and it's fairly steep, so I'm requesting, or I suggested that there be a riprap placed along that area, because the slope is proposed that.
How
you know,
long does that run for that he has to do that, do you know?
Probably about 100 feet, maybe, if that, 50, 60 feet. Dan probably has the plan, I don't have it in front of me. This was a month ago.
The 4 to 6 inch riprap along,
Yeah, I was gonna say, that was the other question I had, is what size riprap, because if you get small stuff, it's just gonna end up in the road. 4 to 6 should be fine.
use anything that was a 12-inch matter, 4 to 6 inch riprap placed on the regraded slopes right along this area.
Yeah, so it's not even 100 feet, right, Dan?
Yeah, that's probably, 75 feet.
And that whole section is greater than 2 to 1? But you're-
This section right here.
Okay.
So-
And that's, yeah, is that the only section that you're showing it in? Because I don't want the riprap unless we definitely need it, is what I'm saying.
Correct, this is minimal.
That's the
as
plan
well.
there,
So
yeah.
just over in this area near the entrance,
It's
it's wider,
graded out,
flatter,
okay.
and then as we get down, it balances out. So-
So that change is already on the plan then to address that
Yeah, that's
comment?
on the plan, I added a note about the infiltration systems, I added a note that was, for the street trees. Those are all comments that
Are the trees all done, all cut down?
nothing's been cut up there. yet.
Nothing's been cut yet?
Do you have material underneath some fabric underneath the riprap on the plan,
Not shown, I can.
please?
Yeah, so if you're gonna add that, you might as well just add a detail. I think I referenced in my note that to show a detail. I don't think I've seen a detail at this point. I believe you just spec it out in that plan, right?
Right.
Yeah, so,
So we can,
which I'm okay with, but that'll come out in the detail as well, so you might as well just, if you have to add information,
I don't have a problem
if you
with
could
it.
add a
Again,
detail,
yeah, you can.
Yeah,
showing the riprap, a detail of a riprap slope, that's all.
The only thing he's adding is the fabric.
detail for the, yeah. In which case they'll do a detail, which would be good to just do a detail showing the slope, the stone, and then a geotextile fabric underneath.
and then, make the changes on the Mylar.
Joe, you'd see, that would be much better to
I
put the
agree.
fabric.
Yeah, yeah, it'll stop some growth from coming up through the,
And some of the erosion.
Yep. Anyone from the audience have a question?
yes, this is a public hearing. Is there any comments or questions from people in the audience? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
That's been a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second? Seconded by John.
I'll make a motion to approve the subdivision, provided the detail showing the fabric in the 2 to 1 slope with the riprap be placed on the plan.
Motion to
The
approve
definitive
approve the
subdivision.
subdivision plan, subject to adding a detail for the riprap slope as discussed at the meeting. Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Lena. So we have two motions. I'll handle the first one in terms of a vote. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, signify by saying aye.
All right,
Unanimous at 5. All those that approve the plan, subject to the addition of the detail for the slope, for the riprap slope. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous at 5.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other question.
Yep.
I have the Mylars for Ariana Estates, 4 signatures.
Yeah, you can just leave them on the table over,
Okay.
we'll,
You could probably pick them up from Mike's office tomorrow if you'd like.
No, just leave them there.
Okay.
So we'll do them after and then just come get them tomorrow.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
seeing how it's past 7:05, we'll go to the second public hearing. Application of Imperial Hyundai for approval of a definitive plan to rescind the private street known as Victory Road located easterly from Adams Road. Census map 33, block 0, lot 36 in the RB zone. Yeah.
I move we approve it. Runs along the swamp.
Well,
That's
look,
right, that's right.
let
Looks like-
Mr. Antonellis go
Looks
through
like there's a
his,
structure on it. Is there a structure on it?
Good evening. For the record, Joseph Antonellis on behalf of the applicant.
I don't know what that is.
I have some additional plans that correspond to the plan that I just put up on the board. Has a little color added to show you the area of Victory Road that has already been discontinued, which is in light blue, and the area of the roadway that we seek to discontinue,
Oh, I see it, yeah.
which is in red.
Right
So, this is the property that constitutes the Hyundai dealership. It's made up of multiple parcels in separate entities, all of which are controlled by Mr. Meehan. Basically, what you're doing, you're running along Hamilton Street, coming in along these two houses that are owned by Tuminello and Pierce, and then back up here. Again, this would be the Victory Road part, which is included within the area of land owned by the applicant. Come up, come back down along Mr. Parati's Prairie Street, and then down to Mr. Parati's property. Coming down to the front, this is Rudy's way out welding right here. So the rest of this was the Hyundai dealership. This piece of roadway was discontinued through the cul-de-sac and then onto that property along the properties. And the idea here is to simply terminate the roadway for good. That will allow my client to be able to then come in with an 81X plan, merge the parcels. We'll have one parcel for the purpose of development on the Hyundai dealership parcel. And so we seek simply to rescind the approved subdivision. That would eliminate any frontage for this parcel, which it presently has on the paper street. This frontage, this parcel would then be, again, as I said, merged through an 81P process, 81X process, sorry, and then all of the frontage will be limited to Hamilton and East Main Street.
I'll read, Mike had some comments. The planning board should discuss the following items. The existing sewer easement is to remain. What provisions will be made to allow for controlling the stormwater runoff that currently drains from Adams Street into the existing wetland? The highway surveyor noted Adams Street is a dead end with no way of turning around. The highway department's only option during, this allows the last two residents of the street to access their driveways. Any kind of fence or barrier will make it impossible. This really doesn't touch Adams Street, so it has no effect on that, so.
No,
I'm
but I
not
think
sure
his,
if
I think his contention is that he probably went past Adams Street and into the clearing of Victory is what I'm gathering from, if you read between the lines, I think is what he's contending.
Yeah, at the end of Adams Street, when they plow the snow to the dead end of Adams Street, it essentially sits in a portion of Victory Road or Victory Lane.
Correct, that's what I think he's saying.
He's concerned about in the future, and mine was more so for the future. The runoff of the drainage now drains down Adams towards this direction, and we just need to make sure that
Who owns Victory Road presently?
it's.
Paper
All of the
Street, everybody
abutters
that-
own to it, so all of the portion that's being sought to be discontinued is owned by my client. And relative to the end of Adams Road, Michael had pointed out to me that the end of that is all wetlands. And so if the town seeks to plow into the wetlands, they can go ahead and do it. There won't be a structure there because it's too wet. And everything can stay. But from a functional standpoint, it will take out a sideline and front yard setback for any future use of the property.
Yeah, anything that he comes back in terms of that comment has to be part of a site plan that he would end up having to do, so.
Exactly, it would
I
be
mean,
a-
it's something that we need to keep in mind when it comes forward, but I don't think it's an issue in terms of discontinuing the street.
Agree, and I think the intention would be, once the Hyundai dealership gets settled in and makes determinations as to whether or not they need any additional space or where they might need it, then we'd be back with an amended site plan for that parcel.
Yeah.
And we also, fire department sent an approval, no comment on theirs. Those are the comments we had. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on it? Yes, can you just, your name and address, please?
Carol Hill, 6 Prairie Street. My house, it's just in front of, well, it's next to Rudy's, and as you can see, a little bit of this, this storage easement is on my property too.
Mm-hmm.
So, how does this, I see it curves around, so what is this storage easement anyway? Do we actually have pipes in this ground? I mean, I came here after this was granted to the town. You know?
Joe, do you know, or,
I'm assuming that the pipes are in the ground and that easement comes in through those parcels of property, and then it was, well, that's a good question, I don't know, thank you. I am assuming now that it was put to put the pipes out to Prairie Street.
I think the pipe's straight out to Prairie Street.
Out to Prairie Street.
I would think.
There's
Right.
pipes in the easement
In the
currently.
easement, right.
It comes all the way from, is it Cabot, or what's that?
Cabot.
Cabot, right, so I'm assuming
Feeds
maybe
all
it picks
down
up
through
these
there.
houses here.
I would think it's
and
going
then-
to the pump
and then
station across
comes
the
out-
street.
Comes out and then goes down, correct. So I'm assuming that all stays, obviously.
Yeah,
And,
that,
and so that will continue to exist.
Okay, now, this red area that you talk about, this is not wetland,
It is wetlands.
but you're hoping that you can come back later and develop
Oh,
it?
no,
in the future.
I don't mean to, if I may. We won't be able to come back and develop in that area because it's too close to the sideline. We still have a sideline setback to deal with. The idea is that if we wanted to come back in, this is, because it's a street, it would be considered a front yard setback, which is much deeper, and would then take out, but we can't work in the wetlands.
yeah, this strictly has to do with taking the street out. So it's to the applicant's advantage not to have a street there is effectively what it amounts to. So, and because he's really the only one that has rights in that street left anymore, it's sort of, he owns the property but has a street that is
Street that
paper.
goes nowhere, because it's gonna go into
Okay.
Mosechili's backyard, so it really, it's a paper road that if you didn't know, if Joe wasn't discussing it, you wouldn't know it was there, that's,
If I didn't get this letter. from
you
the
wouldn't know it
planning
was
board,
there,
I
yep.
wouldn't know.
That's right.
Yep, so it's not, and he's not looking to build anything, it's just, when he wants to adjoin the entire property to have a street and then he has different setbacks, it makes no sense, that's basically what he's saying.
Okay, well, you just mentioned that he said something about looking at the Hyundai dealership and how it moves in the future, that we may come back, and that
Oh, yeah.
made me wonder what he had in
Anything-
mind for that area.
Anything left to do on this property would be subject to the jurisdiction of this board for approval. Okay, so anything else, any addition to a building, or any new building, or any new parking areas that are over six cars, I believe in Milford is the minimum for a site plan review, and 600 square feet maybe for a building. So anything really comes back before them.
So if I'm in the butter for this, will I get a notice if they decide they want to do something in the future? How does that work?
No, it's advertised in the Milford Daily News, in 2 newspapers. There's no legal requirement as part of site plan for all the abutters to be notified. Only zoning issues would require notification of abutters, so the only way that you would know is you would need to look at either on the town's website, which says what the public hearings, what the site plan reviews are coming up, or looking through the Milford Daily News, it's published in there also. But you won't get a letter like you did there.
Joe, if we wanted to put a easement for the snow, would that be now, or when you do the,
You'd have to do it now.
I realize, he's,
He's what?
I asked him because he went to couple more years of school.
Well, in order to have a right to put the snow there, you will need an easement.
I knew that.
That's correct, right. So,
The timing of the easement, now or the 81X.
I believe with the 81X.
No,
No.
we need to do it now.
It's now.
Now.
But I don't know,
It's
I don't
not
know,
now.
I'm not sure whether we want,
That, again, you're, cause, you know, then you're pushing snow by way of an easement into a wetland. And I don't know if you can do what others can't.
Well, there's upland there.
There is some out there.
Yes, there's,
Okay.
however wide Victory Lane is,
It's up.
that's where the pavement is now, at the end of that road. It's in Victory Lane. And then there's wetlands about another 20 feet, so.
Okay.
That was one of my concerns was, if we dissolve this, I just wanna protect the town in the future, that it's not, the stormwater wasn't blocked off, and then the highway has the same concern about the snow.
So,
But there is 30 feet of upland there. Is all I'm saying, so.
I'm not sure the town has the right to do it now.
I agree with that.
As a paper street, I don't know what rights we have or not.
I think your assessment of it is correct. The town doesn't have a right now.
You know, and the reason why I'm saying that is at this point going forward, we leave it, certainly when that will be an issue if and when he comes back as part of a site plan review. I think that's something, again, that we would need to make sure that we're covered at that point in time, but I'm not sure that we need to do it now.
I gotta say that it shows on the map, it's a paper road. The town today has the rights to put the snow what they're doing. If you rescind it,
I don't
think so.
think you're
As
correct
a
by
paper,
that
as a
point.
paper street, it was never accepted by the town. I don't,
The approval of a definitive subdivision plan only gives the applicant, or the owner, the right to build a road and to use it for those purposes. The town has no rights in it until the applicant puts the covenant on it. So without a covenant, that creates the ability to build a road. That's just a piece of property with a subdivision approval.
Again, I'm not worried about Kevin blocking it off. But in the future, I'm worried about Ernie Buck Jr. or something like that, who's not as,
Yeah, because then you're dealing with private land then. It's
Right.
even-
that's
Right. Well,
the only
you-
thing with the easement.
You're dealing with private land now. And so to the extent that you all believe that an easement is an appropriate solution to the problem, then I believe that we can accommodate that,
Okay.
okay? And I think that Mr. Dean and I can work out the language and the area, because again, I don't think the town wants to be known to be pushing snow into a wetland.
I mean, it's what they push it now, so
I know, but
it doesn't.
yeah, but Mike makes it sound like it's not. He's
they
pushing
don't
it in
take-
the
Can't
uplands.
put it in their pocket
Oh,
and
there-
take it
well,
out.
there-
That's for
There
sure.
is upland, the width of Victory, that's
Yeah.
paved right now.
So that's paved.
Yes, correct.
I'm sure there's not too much salt that goes down Adams.
oh, I can't imagine.
Okay, other than that, I got,
But at any rate, I do not believe there's an issue with an easement from the applicant. And I think that John Nanad, who also works for Mr. Meehan, made representations to that to Michael earlier.
Yes.
And so if you want to see something drafted, I'll work it out with Mike.
I think they should,
don't be.
yeah.
pleasure of the board?
I move we approve the
You gotta close the public.
Yeah,
close the public hearing, and approve the plan.
subject to the addition of the easement.
Exactly.
Motion to close the public hearing and approve the discontinuance of Victory Road, subject to the inclusion of a snow storage easement at the end of Adams Street. Do I hear a second?
Second.
That was by John, by the way, the original. Seconded by Babe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 5.
Thank you. I'll work out the language with Michael.
Yeah, we can just sign that next time, I would assume, Joe?
That's fine. And we'll probably be back in with the 81X about the same time, so.
Item 3. We don't have anything on, Kevin's here, though. It's the 40B review and report, Birch Street Place, 88 Corp., Kevin Loberser. No reports from, oh, wait, we do have one, I take that back. Larry did write a letter. Come on up, Kevin, I'll read Larry's letter while Kevin's getting set. The applicant requests comprehensive permit approval for affordable housing development off Birch Street in the Bear Hill Industrial Park. Specifically, the proposal consists of 162 units, 4-building affordable housing development on a northerly 20.95 acres of the overall 45.84 acre parcel. All of the 162 units will be rental units and will therefore all count towards the town's 10% requirement. Total of 324 off-street parking spaces are to be provided, resulting in a parking ratio of 2.0 per dwelling. The applicant met numerous times with staff in preliminary stages of development design. This has resulted in a layout that provides safe and adequate access within the development. The proposal entirely separates the residential traffic from the heavy truck traffic on Industrial Road by accessing on Birch Street, taking no access from Industrial Road. 20-foot wide main access drive off Birch Street is proposed as the only access for the entire development, which for day-to-day operations seems adequate. However, a secondary drive should be provided from the rear of the fire department property for emergency access. I have reviewed the application in the context of accepted planning principles and the need for affordable housing in Milford. The units are clustered around a central community square area containing a clubhouse, pool, patio area, and a playground. Over 6 acres of contiguous open space to the west of the development are also being preserved. The development will serve as a buffer between the residential use to the north and west and the industrial use to the south. Development also reserves approximately 25 acres that front directly on Industrial Road for future commercial industrial use. Therefore, I recommend a favorable recommendation, subject to relevant agency comments and subject to the addition of the emergency access drive as noted from the town planner, Larry Duncan. That was the only thing that we had from any staff. With that, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Wow, that was a pretty good summary, so I guess I don't have to read any of this. That was good. Well, I guess what I would want to add to that is we have been in front of the zoning board. We actually have our second meeting on the 7th, on Thursday night, and they hired CEI as the engineering, the consultant engineering. I think Mike and I have been out there with CEI so far. I believe the only two comments that they had, Mike Wright, was the access to the fire department, and they wanted us to expand our traffic study to include the intersection down by the McDonald's at the end of Beaver Street. Yeah, so we're doing that. They're currently doing that now. We're trying to have it ready for Thursday, but it might not be. That just came out on Thursday, I believe. So, with the access to the fire department, we're certainly not gonna, we don't have an issue with it whatsoever, but as Larry said in his comments, we started this whole process with Larry, with Mike, with, the sewer department and everybody else. The original thoughts on that were that the fire department, the fire chief, did not want any access to go through the fire station area. So that was why we didn't have it in there. But once a few more people looked at it, they decided that they'd like us to have a little bit of a breakaway gate. The comment from the fire chief at the time was, if they can't get to this project quicker than any other project in town, then they'd have a big problem anyway. So that was the reason why he didn't think that they needed it, but we're gonna add it.
Yeah, I think that's the appropriate move. The fact that they're there, I don't know how many people on his force are gonna walk to the back building and pull people out if there's an issue and there's an accident in the front driveway,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so it's gonna be right off the back of their, basically right off their parking lot.
Yeah, and I don't think that should be an issue to them in that, again, it's a lock gate, it's not public access, it's strictly for an emergency, but I think it's a prudent,
Yeah, so
Option.
that's being added, that'll be on the plans for Thursday night's meeting, and CEI's already been working with us on that. The only other comment that I can think of is with Mr. Mainini on the sewer. We have the access and the ability to connect to the sewer. The pump station is down at the Cornerstone Assisted Living, and he actually had the reports were relatively recent because of the Cornerstone project, so they made that information available to us. So we know what we have to do. We've got to increase the pumps. We've got to do another. We need to basically provide, I believe it was 7,500 more gallons of
storage.
Of storage. Yeah.
So that could be another wet well, or is that an increase to the existing wet well, do you know?
we're gonna try to do it by just increasing the existing well. But if it won't work, I mean, it's obviously, it's deep and it's pretty wet down there, so we're gonna try to be careful of
Yeah.
how that happens.
Yeah. Any comments, questions from the board for Kevin?
Could we take a look at your
Oh, sure, sure.
rendering there?
Yeah, the other thing I did want to talk quick about, now that I'm thinking about it, is what Larry said about the industrial way, that we did split off, about roughly half of the property to make sure that that stayed as industrial land, in order to really create a buffer to the condo project that abuts the fire station. And I think that move alone does separate us from the other 40B projects that came in after we started working with the town. And what I mean by that is that if we did not separate that, we could have easily had 300 units in this project. And throughout the process, that when we were working with Larry and Mike, and we went to the selectmen twice, everybody really felt like the comfortable size for a project was somewhere in the mid-100s, and that's what we did. So.
What's the grading between there and Birch Hill in terms of where your buildings will be sitting in terms of those buildings? on the
We're
backside?
lower here, I believe it's about 14 feet lower than the crest of the hill at the property line. And then these guys go back down about 14 feet.
So that property line will effectively serve as a buffer, a view buffer as well.
It will, but another, I would call it unique thing that we did with this one is back in January, we had so many public hearings going on with just back and forth with trying to make sure that we were doing the right thing on the size of the project. I had many people from the Birch Hill condo project attend those meetings. So after one of the meetings, I agreed to go to their annual condo meeting. And so I was there for about an hour, and I completely did the whole entire presentation. And when we were done with that, some people talked about the fact that there's not a lot of pine trees up on that hill, and they do drop their leaves. So we added a double row of evergreens at the top of the hill to try to, I think, make them feel comfortable. So.
Obviously, you don't have plans in terms of the industrial land right now. I'm just thinking out loud to a certain extent. We talked about the access through the fire department. Is it such, depending on how you develop that industrial land, that there may be an emergency access through the industrial section, or?
No.
No, yeah, there's not, there's not, because it's technically separated by a wetland, and I guess we could do a major crossing,
would- no,
but
I would-
yeah,
I
we
would-
didn't want to do that, so it will not be connected. And then, that's a picture of the units.
All the buildings are similar, Kevin?
They're all similar, except, so 3 of them are basically identical to that, and then there's a 4th one that, I shouldn't have put that up, let me give you 1 second here. This unit here is what we call a 3-4 unit, so from the front of it, it looks identical to these units, but because of the grading, there's actually a lower level, so there's technically 4 stories on the back side of that, but it's really in the lower level. Yeah. And another, I think, unique thing too is that all 4 of these buildings do have elevators.
I was gonna ask that
Yeah,
question.
they're all elevated. All of the units that we're building are gonna be able to be adaptable to ADA. So each building will have, I believe it's 4 units that are fully ADA right out of the gate, but the other units are all designed that they can be adaptable.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's great.
So,
So I think we, as a board, we need to send a recommendation to the zoning board. So that way they have that on record at least, so I think this is not, it's not a public hearing, it's a special permit referral, so, or it's actually, it's continuation of 40B review and report. So with that, if there's a recommendation from the board,
I'll move to send a favorable recommendation to the ZBA.
with Larry's letter
With Larry-
effectively,
with Larry's
which is the
letter
fire
attached
department.
to it.
Thank you
Right.
for the cooperation.
And what,
Thank you for the cooperation.
and thank him for, all the cooperation that he has with the Birch Hill condominiums, which I think is excellent, you know. It's always good when a builder sits down with all the people that they're going to be neighbors with, to tell them, this is how we are, this is the good company we are. And I really appreciate that you did that. I think that's excellent.
Motion, motion by Lena before the board to send a letter to the zoning board of appeals indicating our pleasure with the cooperation the applicant has given to this board as well as the abutting property owners, and to send a favorable recommendation for the 40B project, subject to the comments in the town planner's letter of May 10th, 2018.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Babe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 4, 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
You want my letter? Let me find it for you.
Kevin, 2 and 3 bedrooms, right?
2 and 3 bedrooms, Kevin?
1, 2s, and 3s.
1, 2s, and 3s,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, this is the state, you have to do
You have to do
10% 3, I believe,
Okay.
correct, Kevin?
Yes, 10% 3s.
You said, Karen?
I'm just looking, I knew I had the data for you. So I have the 64 one-bedroom units, 78 two-bedroom, and 20 three-bedroom.
Wow.
That was good.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yep. Larry threw me off with his one.
Continued ZBA special permit referral, 14B, South Free Street, Al's Collision Center. This ZBA special permit, I'll read in the letters. Well, I guess we only have the
You
town
just have to
planner's
read
letter.
Larry's because it was here the last meeting and apparently he hasn't come in and changed anything, so
Oh, okay,
Larry's letter is gonna be very reflective of what we already discussed.
okay. Unfortunately, I wasn't here for that.
No, that's
so.
why I said if,
The applicant requests a special permit to conduct an automotive sales and repair business on the subject property. ZBL Section 2.3 provides for such use by zoning board of appeals special permit in the CBCC zones. Because a sizable portion of the subject property is zoned RA, a special permit under ZBA Section 3.1.4 is required to change from one non-conforming use to another. It should be noted that the application is incomplete in the following aspects. The property owner hasn't signed the special permit application. There is no up-to-date site plan accompanying the application. The site plan does not clearly identify the separate uses on the property. Therefore, I recommend the case be continued to allow the applicant to correct the deficiencies noted above. A site plan will be needed to be submitted to the planning board subsequent to any approval by the zoning board of appeals. If a special permit is granted, the planning board will determine at the site plan review stage exactly how many unregistered vehicles the Santos garage portion of the site can support after the required off-street parking for all the uses on the site is determined and located. This information, along with any ZBA special permit conditions, will be included in the report to selectmen at the time of the Class 2 license request.
I'll make a motion for unfavorable since the application is still incomplete as outlined by 3.
Do we know, do you have any idea, Mike, when this is going before the zoning board?
No, I do not.
I think this upcoming Thursday, I think is when they meet next. 14th, thank you.
Well, if that is on and the applicant hasn't done anything, then I don't see any.
Yeah, we carried it over and Larry,
Yeah,
I believe,
right.
reached out to them and still nothing, so as far as I'm concerned. it's-
Application to send an unfavorable recommendation to the zoning board, subject to the comments, or for reasons of the comments in Larry's letter, that the application is incomplete, and there's no up-to-date site plan, to be able to determine exactly what's happening on the site. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by John. Any
You
other
said-
discussion?
Can you send Larry's letter along with that?
We always
Yes.
do, we always
Always
do.
do, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
All those in favor of the unfavorable recommendation, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous at 5.
Thank you.
I'll give you a second, Karen.
Note my abstention on this one as well.
Is it
This
honey?
next one, number 5, the plan came in late, Larry was saying, so that's the plan that you see in front of you if you need it as a reference.
Okay,
That goes with item number 5.
okay. You said, Karen? ZBA special permit referral, 13 Commerce Way, Sierra Naturals, Inc. The applicant requests a special permit to establish a marijuana establishment on the subject property. The proposal is to add a 7,800 square foot marijuana cultivation greenhouse to the site that contains an existing medical marijuana treatment center. New provisions for marijuana establishment provide for such use in the IB zone via site plan approval only. However, the special permit for the existing medical marijuana treatment center applies to the entire property and requires amendment for any proposed changes, hence the current application. All applicable zoning requirements appear to be met. Larry therefore recommends a favorable recommendation be sent to the zoning board of appeals. Is this yours, Joe?
Yes.
With that, I'll turn it over to you.
Came in, so this is an application, obviously, for the extension of the grow facility that's there, and the intention is to do it in a greenhouse. The first question I asked is, will it be translucent or will it be transparent? And the answer is all the glass will be translucent. You will not be able to see from anywhere what is growing inside the facility. It could be tomatoes. Again, I think Larry pointed out, we went through the special permit before we made the application. And the way the special permit was written requires the applicant to amend the special permit for anything that happens on the property. So, again, the zoning board, when it granted the permit, was very strict about the fact that they didn't want multiple different users on any property when there was medical marijuana, when there was a cultivation facility. In fact, they denied another application based on that because it was being put into a building where there were other tenants with other businesses. So I'm presuming that if I came with a greenhouse to grow tomatoes, I'd probably get denied, because the intention was to keep all of the business on that property related to that one industry. So we're gonna go forward. Actually, I may not go forward. I told Larry earlier last week, my client is considering actually putting this on another parcel of property, and we're still working it out, and, you know, so next week we may not actually go forward. But right now, it's going to be a temporary structure for a few years, and we'll see. But we'll have to come back to you for site plan, because we're gonna put a building where there are already parking spaces. We'll have to reconfigure the parking, meet the parking requirements, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that, because
Yeah.
depending on what the access is back and forth to the buildings, I'd
Correct.
be interested in seeing what that looks like.
And the other thing is that without preempting it forever, there will most likely not be a dispensary at this facility.
Mhm.
So it will remain solely a cultivation facility. With the change in the law, they don't expect that medical marijuana dispensaries will be all that popular. They expect that everybody will go recreational.
Mhm.
And this, as we know, they can't be recreational there.
Right.
So it can only be cultivation. So that's pretty much where we are.
Questions, comments from the board? I'll entertain a motion to the zoning board.
I would recommend I give a recommendation of a favorable.
It makes a motion to send a favorable recommendation to the zoning board. Do I hear any seconds?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Lena. Any further comment? All those in favor of sending a favorable recommendation to the zoning board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 4, 1 abstention.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Phil.
Thank you.
We'll take a break, Lena.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6, ZBA variance referral, 2 Eastview Drive, back bay
He's
signs.
the coach in Grafton, Blackburn, Tom.
Okay, we're back on.
Okay, go ahead.
The applicant requests a variance to allow for the replacement of a sign on the subject property. Specifically, the request is to replace the existing non-conforming freestanding sign in Rolling Green Complex. This proposal requires a special permit to replace one non-conforming sign with another rather than a variance. The proposed sign will be a 2-foot by 6-foot single-faced, non-illuminated sign in the same location as the current sign at the northwest corner of the intersection of Claudette Drive and Alfred Drive. Therefore, I recommend the planning board forward a favorable report to the zoning board of appeals for a special permit to replace one non-conforming sign with another.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Pat to send a favorable recommendation to the zoning board of appeals for a special permit to replace the sign, not as a zoning variance. Seconded by John. Any further discussion by the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of the
Aye.
all opposed? Unanimous at 5.
Nice looking sign.
Well, I think it's pretty consistent with their updated signs that they've been putting up.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one, that's been there, it's been there for as long as I can remember. I remember that sign being there forever, so.
Yeah, that's a nice looking sign, yeah.
ZBA special permit referral.
One of Lena's neighbors.
47 Fruit Street, Andalon Ferraria Netto. Again, I'll read Larry's letter into the records. The applicant requests a special permit to add a third story to the existing two-family dwelling on the subject property. A variance would be necessary in this case rather than a special permit, as the maximum height allowed in the RA district is 2 stories. The proposal is to convert the attic space above the second story to third-story living space. There are no conditions whatsoever that constitutes a hardship in this application. Therefore, I recommend an unfavorable recommendation be forwarded to the zoning board of appeals.
Motion for an unfavorable.
Motion by Pat to send an unfavorable recommendation to the zoning board. Do I hear a second?
I'll
Seconded by
second
Lena.
that.
Any other discussion by the board?
One other discussion, I would think that if the house wasn't big enough for his family, he should have bought a bigger house.
No. This is, to me, this is gonna add just another, let's just
Another
add some more
apartment.
apartments up there. That's what,
Another
I didn't get this is for family living. I got this is for, this is a new venture. I can grab another couple bedrooms.
And you know, the street itself, the people, there's only 10 feet between each yard. So,
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of sending the unfavorable recommendation to the zoning board will signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 5. We need to set meetings for July and August. We were thinking July 17th and August 14th. Is there any
Motion.
discussion?
Nope.
Motion by Pat to set the meeting dates is July 17th and August 14th. Seconded.
You wanna do September as well? I think Karen we usually do
Yeah,
September as
well, I
well.
think we'll just confirm September's.
Okay.
Seconded by me.
Seconded by Babe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 5.
What was the August one again?
14,
August
1-4.
14. September's meetings will
Revert back to.
revert back to our normal schedule, which would be the day after Labor Day,
Aye.
the 4th and the 18th, unless somebody has an issue with that.
No, I already got that down.
I don't believe we need to take a vote on that one, seeing how that's our normal schedule anyways.
Right.
But just so we confirm. The other thing that I had, just so people are aware, because we did talk about it, and some of you may have seen it, is Wendy's is moving forward with a redesign of
Thank
Lake
God.
Wendy.
Thank God.
So there should be some changes and stuff that we should see on that shortly. I guess, Mike, I don't know if you've had any
Oh, yeah, I've been out there several times. I've been communicating with the design team or the team that's in charge of taking care of the issue. They've discovered, they pulled apart a bunch of manholes. After it was built originally, there was a trench drain that was added up at the upper level, added to the lower level in terms of drainage and detention basin. And I would say there's pretty much zero maintenance from day one when it was built. So there's a couple things going on there that has literally short-circuited the entire system.
Okay.
So the engineers, I've met with him on a couple occasions. He's been in communication with me. He has just recently sent the schedule out in terms of going through the whole design. Soil testing's coming up, I think, next week. And they're just gonna continue. And I've given them all the information we have internally here in terms of the original drainage analysis, so they can at least build upon that or understand what the interest points were in terms of the drainage.
Are they thinking they're gonna infiltrate down there?
They have, well, no, the one scenario is expanding that open surface detention basin that's just along the edge
On
of
the edge,
Gillis
yeah.
Street. But he hasn't ran all the calc yet, and he's gonna wait till he gets his groundwater analysis or evaluate the groundwater and see what
I
he
think it's
really
pretty
can.
high, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna get much infiltration down there. But whatever,
Yeah, correct.
we'll leave that up to them as they
Yeah,
move forward.
exactly.
But, yeah, I noticed that it was marked, dig safe marked,
But
the
there's
driveway.
you know, they stuffed the trench drain in on that upper level that runs along the retaining wall that took that whole upper level that was supposed to go to that detention basin along Diller in some underground chambers at a higher level. If you think about that site, it's 14 feet, you know, probably a 14-foot drop.
Yep.
So they took that trench drain on the upper level and dumped it into the lower basin that was only designed for that small area to get around that driveway, not the upper portion. And then on top of that, that's where most of your, well, there's a lot of traffic through the whole site, but you have all the cars coming through that drive-through right there, so you're getting that sediment and, you know, suspended solids, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's over 1,000 cars a day probably go through there, so, for 15 years, so the whole thing is just
Yeah,
short-circuited.
the system did work good for 15 years.
It kept progressively getting worse with less maintenance, and
Well,
that's
and
even,
that's-
that's even with the upper portion of the site tied in, and it was
Yeah.
never supposed to be, so, you know, if that never happened and it was maintained and cleaned out,
Still work.
it'd probably still be working.
Yeah, excellent.
That's
This is
too
the way,
bad.
this is what has happened.
Motion for adjournment.
Motion by Pat to adjourn, second? Second by Lena, all those in favor?
Right.
Unanimous at 5. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope they fix the.